This is Conversations with Ronnie Keith. Welcome back to episode 2 and part 2 of Conversations with Ronnie Keith. I am your host, Ronnie Keith. I just want to take a moment to thank you guys for all of your support for last week's episode 1. We didn't know that would be part 1 of episode 1, but we have a part 2. We're back with you guys again. Antwann, Professor Antwann is with us again this week, and we just wanted to follow up on how we left kind of on a cliffhanger with episode 1 for Conversations with Ronnie Keith. Again, I want to thank you guys for supporting, downloading, listening. Please continue to support, listen. If you have Apple Podcasts that you listen to the Conversations with Ronnie Keith podcast on, please make sure to rate, subscribe, follow, and also leave a comment. Let me know what you think about the podcast. Also do the same if you have Spotify. You can do that there by rating and also leave. Well, I don't think you can leave a comment. You could rate it on Spotify, but please do so. Follow and subscribe on whatever streaming app that you are listening to the Conversations with Ronnie Keith podcast on. And as a reminder, we will be dropping every Friday. There will be a new episode every Friday. And I know that the format was kind of going to be, 1 week conversations with a guest, and 1 week me and Iris getting on here. But you know what? Episode 1 was so good, we had to follow right up with it, especially with some of the demand that I got from y'all in my inbox. So we can't leave it just like that. So had to immediately follow back up. We've got Antwann back on. Antwann, thank you again for joining me today to follow up on episode 1. And so before we begin, I want to do one thing that we did not do too much is I just introduced you, and I just took for granted that, if you listen to the Short Disc podcast, you already know who Antwann is. No, I want you guys to know his credentials. So Antwann, give us a little background on your professional credentials for the audience so they'll know who they're listening to and what you bring to the table.
Sure, no problem. Well, first of all, I am glad to be back, and thank you for having me, and thank you, everyone for listening out there. In terms of my background and my credentials, my bachelor's is in African American Studies. That came from Morehouse. That was my major, and my minors were history as well as sociology. I received a master's in African American Studies from UCLA, a master's in sociology from UCLA, a candidate of philosophy from UCLA, PhD UCLA, and I'm a teaching fellow at UCLA as well. And I have a few publications out there right now working on a book, but a few articles that I do have out there is Here to Stay in the Bay, that deals with the politics of Black trans women in Jamaica. I have Apparitions in the Theory, and that has to deal with how science reinforces race and gender in the 21st century. And the piece that I've probably been cited the most on is titled Under Siege, Black Women, the Choreography of Law in the Public Carceral Sphere. That was written in 2016. But all of that is like publicly accessible. But that's like the academic stuff. I try to write in an accessible prose, but that's just a little bit of my professional background in terms of degree wise, and
Right.
presented at all these conferences. Blah blah blah. Y'all know the rest.
Well, let me ask you this.
Sure.
So, two things, right? So you are a doctor.
Yes.
Well, we need to start calling you Doctor
No, you don't.
Antwann.
My name is Antwann. That's fine. My name is Antwann.
So you are a doctor. Two, these sites, where can they? Where I know it's publicly published, but where do they just Google? Can our audience just Google what you just cited that you have transcripts of for yourself that you've written, or is there a place where they're um, stored where people can just go and find them and read?
Yeah, so Under Siege, Black Women, the Choreography of a Public Carceral Sphere, they should be able to Google that and it will come up. It should be on UCLA site, somewhere hidden in UCLA. It should come up when it's Googled. The other stuff is usually somewhere behind a paywall, but if you go to AntwannMichael.com, I have it up
Mm.
there for free.
Oh, did you
So
just hear that, y'all? He got his own website. Listen. Well,
So yeah, it's all there. I haven't typed on there in a while, so there's like some old thoughts that I have up there, but nonetheless, the publication is there. But I'm gonna get back into it, once I get over this hump.
okay. Okay. Well, there you go. You have it. You can he has his own website. So make sure you guys go and check that out. Now, we got to follow up from last week because it was a lot. One of our listeners said that was a lot, and I'm, I'm waiting for part two, but that was a lot. So when we last left everyone, we were discussing how you met your father after about 21 years. Of course, you had seen him here and there a little bit
hmm
when you were very little, but pretty much coming in contact with him at the age of 21. Am I correct? Was it 20 or 21?
It was 21. Yeah, they
Okay,
threw my
21.
21st birthday party. I was the only one who was sober.
Wow. So, okay. Now, you had questions
hmm
for your father. And during this time, as you stated in episode one, you were going through what you were going through at the church as they had sat you down and sent you to First Baptist and, you know, wanted you to get counseling and, all those things were going on. The rumors were
hmm
being spread by the first lady of the church. And so that was all out in the open. And so you had questions for your father, and in turn that turned for questions for your mother, which made for a very uncomfortable situation. And so let's dive into that. As you said, you're an open book. What were
hmm
some of those questions that you had for your father?
The first question I had was, "Where were you?" Right. And
Hmm.
now, for honesty, part of the answer I already knew that he was locked up, right?
Hmm.
When I have found out that I have some family members that when they say they're going to stab you, they mean that. It's not just talking into the wind. Oh no, they mean that. Um,
Oh, Jesus.
so that was one of the first questions, and then I asked him questions like, okay, well, do you love me? Were you looking for me? What was the break between you and my mom?
Hmm.
Did you show up to any of like my the games? You were playing football, I was in the band.
Hmm.
And so,
Hmm.
I do know that he showed up to one game. He did show me that he showed up to one game and he set off in the corner. And that was when we played Boone one year, which
Okay.
coincidentally was on the side of Blankner.
Hmm.
A lot of we went into a lot of things, being the fact that I had like disclosed what I had just disclosed to my pastor. I was upfront with him. I was like, look, I'm gay. It is what it is.
Hmm.
Um,
So what was his response to that? Because as you know, you said before, William is this straight of a heterosexual man that can never
he is
be
a
that
man's
walk this
man.
planet. Right. So what was his initial response to you letting him know, hey, you know, I like
Mhm.
men and women or more, hey, I'm homosexual, for him. What
Yeah.
was that response for him from him?
Completely opposite that of my stepfather when I was growing up, in that my dad, William, was completely supportive. He was like, I don't care. You my son. But Parliament House was erected at that point in time. He was like, come on, let's go to
Hmm.
Parliament House and get a drink. Like he was all
Whoa. Wow.
he
Really?
he he was all about it. My dad taught me how to drink. His concern for right. His concern for me was that I was safe. So he took me to the bar and he showed me how to order. He showed me bar etiquette. He showed me what and what not to do. He got my
Hmm.
alcohol tolerance up. I started with Smirnoff Ice and then worked my way right on up to what is now one of my favorite whiskeys, Uncle Nearest.
Hmm.
Right. But of
Black
course,
on that.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
It is
Black
black
owned.
owned. Of course, Uncle Nearest wasn't around at that particular point in time, but all that to
Mm-hmm.
say was he was very, very affirming. His question was, "Well, are you dating anyone?" And I was like, "No, haven't really found anyone." He was like, "Well, you can't be alone." And the thing that he's on my neck now about, as well as that he's on my neck about then, is, "Well, when am I getting grandchildren from you?" I was like, "That's not gonna happen because grandchildren are a bill."
Oh my
um,
goodness.
and that's just a no. And I'm like, I
Right.
have a lot of brothers and sisters. When the
Mm-hmm.
Lord said,
Mm-hmm.
"Be fruitful and multiply," William believed that word. Okay,
Okay.
and my brothers and sisters have had plenty of grandchildren from him, but he wants one from me, which that's not gonna happen. But all
I
that to
understand.
say, he was very supportive. He never judged me. I can talk to him about anything, like whether it be sex related, life related, sports related.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely sports is one of the things that we went into, because anybody that knows me knows that I love college football.
Correct.
But knowing me personally, you know that I never played football
Right.
formally.
Right. Right.
So, that those are things that I missed out on, throwing a
Mm-hmm.
football with my dad, getting
Mm-hmm.
into the sport itself, just those father son like bonding moments.
Mm-hmm.
I missed out on that like for 20 21 years, but we've definitely more than made up
So,
for
well,
that
let
when
me
we
ask
sit
you
in the 40s.
this. So he said he came to one of your football games when Colonial
Hmm.
High School played Boone High School. Why was there not any outreach or interaction made at that time? What was his response for that?
From what I understand, there was tension between him and my mom and my stepdad.
Okay.
Um, for sure at that particular point in time. Because one thing that was very clear to me is I think my stepfather did not care for him, and at the
Hmm.
same time, he also did not care for me as William's son, which was quite interesting and proved for some interesting dynamics in the household coming up.
Hmm.
But from my understanding, or as the story was relayed to me, that because of tension, he did show up. Now, I'm not sure if he stayed the entire time. I don't think he did. I think once halftime happened and he saw me do my thing, I think he dipped out because the tension was there. And Florida has a three strikes rule.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't think he wanted to exactly go for that next strike.
Right.
So,
Understood.
uh,
Understood.
and
Understood.
and, and I and I'll take that. I appreciate him. Showing up, but also doing what's best for him at that point in time, because he knows that if he goes in again, you know,
Hmm.
it's pretty much for life at that point in time.
Right. Right. So the questions you had for William
Hmm.
sparked or initiated the questions that you would have for your mother, right?
Sure.
Was there a specific question that made you go, you know what, I got to take this back to her, and we need to
Hmm.
have an in-depth conversation? Was there a certain question that answer that you received from William that made you go, I got to go back to her?
Yeah, right. So the saying goes, there's three sides to every story. This person's side, the other person's side, and the truth is probably somewhere in the middle.
Hmm.
And so my question for my mom was, listen, what happened to the voicemails my dad and my brothers left? Because some people may know my brother Quantel. When Quantel and I were little boys, they used to call us twins because we look just alike. At the age that we are at now, we look nothing alike. Quantel is like 6'3", muscled out, whole
Hmm.
nine, pure
Hmm.
heterosexual, just like his
Hmm.
daddy. um, and that and those were questions for me, right? In terms of, hey, they called, they left messages, what happened to those messages? In the process of that conversation, I found out that those messages were deleted. Okay, so that means that my relationship with my father, my relationship with my brothers, because I have more than one, those relationships were foreclosed on
Hmm.
by no choice of my own. And in this process, right, this is when and hopefully this will help someone.
Hmm.
This is when you begin to when you move your parents out of a pedestal and understand them as people,
Hmm.
and that being or being with my dad and recalling my dad was very traumatic for her.
Hmm.
And that was, because, truth be told, my dad was very like physically abusive in his marriage with my mom, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So in her moving us to the east side, not only was it about affording opportunities like for me and my sister, but hopefully better opportunities, but it was also about her not having to deal with and see certain people, so certain people obviously being my dad. Because if I would have
Right.
went to Jones, I would have been right there with Quantel and my oldest brother Will. We would
Hmm.
have been in the same school, and that sure enough would have generated some conversations. So
Right.
moving on to the east side allowed a type of harbor and a type of safety until I met my dad again. And when I told her that I was going to, reach out again, we were in public, but I could also tell that her spirit wasn't quite reconciled in that place, and she wasn't ready to confront those
Of
particular
course.
issues because they were going to, come up.
Yeah.
And still to this day, I'm going to be honest with you, I still haven't gotten a straightforward answer on those questions. And sometimes with your parents, when it deals in areas that they have not fully reconciled and healed,
Hmm.
you have to get the healing that you need for yourself as an
Hmm.
individual. And that's by,
Hmm.
asking my brother questions, asking my dad questions. And either they will come around in time or they have reconciled those particular issues to a section in their brain that is safe for them,
Right.
right? Because what you have to understand is that when you are asking questions to that depth, such as why wasn't the phone answered, why did you prevent a relationship with me and my brothers, me and my father, like what, like unpack that by
Hmm.
asking someone to unlock that when or if they're not ready to, that can cause them to spiral,
Right.
right?
Absolutely.
And so, I've just had to respect that. I remember right before my grandfather passed, my dad is the only man I know that can build a house from the ground up. And we called him
Hmm.
over to my grandfather's house, and just so happened my mama was there.
Mm.
That is the only picture that exists of me, my mom, and my dad. And it was like pulling teeth to get my mom to take that picture.
Wow.
So, yeah.
And that's a lot, that's a lot because in her viewpoint, I'm sure, not that I know,
Hmm.
she felt that she was doing everything she could to protect you because of the abuse that she had went through. So she may have felt in some way maybe you were going to go through that same abuse too, because it may have been just an unpredictability of where she didn't know where your father would go with how to deal with you. You know what I mean? And so maybe she
Hmm.
felt as though she was keeping you safe, but then also not realizing that she was still dealing with her own trauma, that,
Correct.
she had never got help over, right? And that's a big thing with the Black community is that, especially our parents' generation, they do not really deal with trauma that they have
Hmm.
experienced, whether it's through their childhood or through a marriage relationship, losing someone. They don't really believe in confronting that because a lot of times it's just like, I'm going to pray about it and take it to the Lord in prayer, and that's it. Instead of saying, hey, you know what? Here's a licensed person
A counselor, right?
that has
You need to
studied.
talk to someone.
Right, right. And so that's their way, for most Black. I'm not going to say all Black people,
Hmm.
but our parents' generation, that's either they're going to drink it away or they're going to pray it away, and that's it.
And in on my mom's side of the family, it was definitely pray it away because
Hmm.
we were born in church. And the thing
Right.
that I will give her is so there's the abusive past like with my father, right? But also the immediate household that I grew up in, who she was married to, he was also very abusive,
So
right?
that's what we're going to step into. Yeah, go ahead.
He not only was he verbally and emotionally abusive. I mean, we're talking about like a man who called me like a fag basically any time he got an opportunity to, right?
Hmm.
Like one of the reasons that I have like lower back issues because like he actually picked me up and like slammed me on the back of the couch one time.
Oh
And
my God.
so my mom is in this position of having to protect me from the person she's currently married to
Hmm.
and balancing at that particular point in time and balancing this emerging thing of what's happening right with William. And even to this day when I ask or attempt to ask her about the marriage that she was in after my dad with this man who I knew did not care a god darn for me. Okay.
Hmm.
I was like, what was that about? Because me as if I'm a parent, you got the first time.
Right.
Especially if
Absolutely.
especially if you're not, especially if you're not my
Right.
child's biological parent. Not that it's
Right.
excusable if you are,
Right.
but you got the first time. And for her, it was about, well, I needed to keep a roof over you all's head. But what was very
Mm.
clear with him was that he did not want, his words, a fag in his house.
Mm. Okay.
So it was balancing all of these things, and for me trying to be like, okay, my dad is not ashamed of who I am. This guy over here, doesn't like me at all, and seemingly I'm a point of embarrassment, for the household. So all of these things like were going on at the same time, and honestly, I have to be straightforward and honest with you. It is nothing but the hand of God that I am in one piece.
Mm. Amen.
Like that's all I can
Mm.
tell people. Like that I am mentally sound, that
Hmm.
I'm in one piece, that I can cognitively think, and I can stand on 2 feet. And if there's one tip that I could give parents, who might have queer children, or recognize that, hey, my child is queer,
Hmm.
and at the same time who have not like reconciled their own issue, please reconcile your issues so that you can be present for your child, because there
Hmm.
will come a day, right, when your child is going to have those hard-hitting questions. You're going to have to be able to address those questions, and there's no need of passing things down generationally, because then that leaves a lot for your child to heal. And to be honest with you, that's the space that me and other members of my family within my generation are in. We are in that process of unpacking, asking questions.
Hmm.
Well, why was this uncle here? Why wasn't he there? Blah blah blah. Why did this happen
Hmm.
in the household? And we're
Hmm.
relying on elders to be open and honest. But you know how it is with Black folks. What happens in this house
Absolutely.
stays in this house, and we're not going to
Stays in the
address
house.
it.
That's
Mhm.
right. That's right. So, that component, the stepfather component, wasn't, talked about on the first episode. And so that came into view today. And, he was he abusive to everyone in the home, including your sister? Because I know you said he got physical with you,
Mhm.
and it sounds like he may have gotten physical with your mother. Um, but was it just he was just an abusive person? And how long was your mom married to him?
Oh my gosh. Since I was a little boy, like the the tip of the iceberg, and she knew she needed to leave that marriage. Let's be like very clear, right? Because she kept saying, I'm
Hmm.
I'm I'm gonna get divorced, I'm gonna get divorced, I'm gonna get divorced. But the tip of the scale was when the police had to be called to our house. And my mom was at a Thanksgiving service, me and my sister were home. But
Hmm.
nonetheless, let me answer your question directly. He was not abusive that I know of toward my sister. Like my sister actually refers to him as her dad. They had a good relationship,
Mm.
and I think that's because she was able to perform and be normative Black femininity, right?
Mhm.
Whereas I was not able to. And I will say, in my mind's eye, I do not recall that he was physically abusive to my mom. I do seem to recall like some instance wherein he held her down like physically,
Mhm.
right? And there was
Mhm.
like a lot of shouting, a lot of verbal abuse. That for sure was there, right? Because I mean, obviously he wasn't faithful.
Mhm.
Um, and that caused a lot of angst in the household. And then me, the queer cherry on top,
Right, right, right.
didn't help, right?
Mhm.
Um, so processing all of that. How long she stayed? It was way over. It had to be over 15 years. I know that for sure because
Mm.
it was they were together through elementary school, middle school. high school, in at least my first 3 years at Valencia. Um,
Mhm.
it was wild, but that relationship did not break up. Like I said, until the police had to be called
Was it
to the
it was a
house.
situation between you and him?
No, believe it or not, it was Thanksgiving. I'll never forget it. My mom went to church, and me and my sister was like, "Well, we staying home. We ain't gonna go to nobody church on Thanksgiving. We hungry." um, and for some reason, I will never forget this. He woke up in a mood, and me and my sister was looking at each other like, "What is going on?" And he was screaming, "Get out of the house! Get out of the house!" And my sister was like, "You, Antoine, of all people, need to get your ass out of the house because this man already don't like you." And we
Mhm.
had a chandelier, and that chandelier was swinging back and forth. This was at 3640 Fox Hollow Drive, okay, in Chickasaw Trail
Mhm.
Station on the backside. Our house was on the backside of Liberty Middle School.
Mhm.
And I was so terrified that I actually called my homeboys, JB, Thomas, Melvin, Darius, who I mentioned in the last interview, and they
Mhm.
rushed from the church over to the house because they was like, "We about to beat this nigga ass." Like they was on ready, right? Like they already
Right.
did not like him because they knew the
Mhm.
inner dynamics of the home. And honestly, right, those men right there, they're my brothers still to this day. They were my counselors. Those were the only people who knew what was going on inside of my house intimately because I felt safe and comfortable with them and disclosed to them everything. So when it went down, they got there quicker than the police. And
Wow.
when my mom, and keep in mind, they were on the west side of town, okay? It got to the
Okay.
east side of
Wow.
town. And when my mom got there, she knew that, like, yeah, this is because everything in the house was destroyed, everything. So she
And,
had to pack
what
up.
year was this?
Oh my gosh, this had to have been, I want to say 2003, 2004, 5, somewhere
Wow.
in there. Definitely before 2006 because he had passed away by then.
Oh, he passed away. Oh, wow.
Hmm.
Okay. Okay.
Hmm.
So let me ask you something, Antoine.
Sure.
When did you discover that you were physically attracted to men?
I've always known.
Okay.
I've
Okay.
I've always known. I was, when you're kids, you kind of sort of look like, okay. And
Hmm.
when I was in elementary school, all the boys was looking at the girls. I was the
Hmm.
only boy looking at the boys.
So, so let me ask you this, and a lot of times this question gets asked a lot, especially in the black community, is
Hmm.
were you molested? Were you touched? Because some of the older people feel
Hmm.
like that starts the transition to same sex attraction. For
Hmm.
you, was that the case, or you just always was
I
attracted to men,
I want to
boys?
be very clear, right? Because the answer to both questions is yes. By the way, I in fact was molested,
Oh, okay.
but I that has nothing to do with same sex attraction for me. Like,
Hmm.
I've just always known, right? And just putting myself like completely out there and being completely transparent with your listening audience. Both even before the molestation took place, right? I was in elementary school and I had an art teacher. And you know how, like, kids like will pat you like on the
Hmm.
leg, like, to get your attention, be like, "Hey, help me."
Yeah, yeah.
And I might have patted somewhere else.
Oh, wow.
And and my grandmother taught at the school, so she was notified immediately, right? There was just always this like attraction for me, right? And my mom will
Okay.
tell you the same thing, right? My dad can't necessarily tell you the same thing because he wasn't necessarily around, but
Right, right,
I
right.
don't attribute my. I know that people say, okay, well, it's either one or two things: either you was molested or your father wasn't around. That is
Mhm,
not the case for Antoine Michael. Okay,
mhm.
now that I am 40 and I'm out here and I'm doing me, what I realize, sexually speaking, I'm into all of it. Hand it here.
Oh my gosh, okay.
Hand it here. Okay? Like that, like that's just what it is. And I'm very open with my sexuality. I'm comfortable
Mhm.
in who I am, and that's what I meant in the last interview when I said, nobody knows if I'm bringing Chris or Christina,
Right, right, right.
because I'm not limited in who I am.
So, let me ask you this, is that what happened to you, have you been able to deal with that trauma, the molestation?
Hell yeah.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
I mean, you can't be the victim forever. At some
Hmm.
point in time, you have to reconcile in your mind, yes, this happened. Let me process it. Let me speak to someone. Yes, Jesus is a healer, but Jesus gonna use someone to speak to your ass, okay?
Right.
Um, and let me reconcile this and let me come home to myself and explore every faucet and every crevice of my inner being. Right? Because there's this
Hmm.
whole phase that you go through of like, did this happen? Did this not happen? And first you
Hmm.
have to reconcile, yes, this happened.
Hmm.
Now let's reconcile it and deal with it so that you are not walking through life bleeding on people who did not cut you.
Mm.
That's important, right? And
Hmm.
you aren't a lot of people aren't able to function sexually, whether they're hyperly sexual or undersexual, right?
Hmm.
In terms of their libido, because they have not reconciled these specific areas. But yeah, man, it happened. Own it.
Right. 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 Were you an adult when you were able to reconcile with it?
Where was I? Maybe about in my 19, 20,
Okay.
21, 22, somewhere in there. There was a lot that happened in that period of like meeting my dad and having conversation. A lot was unpacked, and it
Right.
allowed me to just reconcile and be like, all right, cool.
Okay. Okay. I'm glad to
Not that
hear
it
that.
happened that easily, but
Of course. Of course. Of course. I will tell you this, and I don't think I've ever shared this with you. Um, I always, um, I always look at people, especially in their eyes, and for me, the eyes always tell the story.
hmm
And I just remember when we were in high school, you had one of the most saddest eyes I've ever seen. It just
mm
looked like you were going through so much.
hmm
And as a kid, I didn't know how to go, "Hey, are you okay?" Because you're young and you don't think about that. But I just always remember that, you just had these very sad, not happy
hmm
eyes. And was that the feeling for you during that time period while you were, you know, in high school at least? Were you in a depressed state, or were you, that's just what your demeanor was at the time? What was going on with you during that time frame?
I think I was a functioning trauma informed person,
Mm.
if that makes any sense, right?
Yes, it does.
And the whole saying of like fake it till you make it, right? So I was on my 2 feet, very ambitious, but it was also my household. Like colonial was my escape. So I would go to school and stay at school as long as I could. After school was over, listen, drop me off at Publix number 465. That was at Curry Ford and Chickasaw Trails. I believe that
Chickasaw.
was the
Yep.
intersection.
Yep.
Drop
Hmm.
me off there. I am getting off work at 10, and I'm gonna get up in the morning and do this all over because I was trying to avoid my household. I want to be very clear. I had all of the material things. Listen, parents, I had all of the material things. Okay.
Hmm.
I had the Sega Genesis, the Sega CD, I had the PlayStation, I had the clothes, I had all of the things. But it was the emotional abuse
Mm.
and just being spoke to like I was nobody every day, right? So your description is actually very accurate. And, it was people around me, such as Kimberly Jones, right?
Hmm.
Lisa Davis, Shabrika
Hmm.
Jackson,
Hmm.
Iris, your wife. um, that actually held me up, right? Because
Yeah.
I was the gay kid, at Colonial, especially when I first got there at ninth grade center, but then ended up making prom court my senior year. And these were women who really, well, young ladies at that point in time who really looked out for me. They weren't gonna
Hmm.
let nobody walk on me in any kind of way.
Right.
Especially Iris. Iris ain't playing no mess. Iris
I know.
have been playing no mess since high school. Okay, like since I have known her, Iris have been playing no mess.
Right.
And
Right. Right.
these were young ladies who protected me and shielded me. Right.
Hmm.
So all that to
Hmm.
say is that your description is very accurate. and
Mhm.
processing, that at time. That's why I say, I'm thankful to be on my 2 feet and in my right mind. I know what the old people mean by when they say that he's a keeper. Okay, because,
That's right. That's
because
right.
look here.
Right. Right. So when in the last episode we talked about when you we had these questions for your mom. So apparently, well, according to you, those
Mhm.
questions haven't been fully answered, right?
They have not.
Okay. What's the level of frustration with that for you?
Huh? That is a wonderful question.
Hmm.
Level of frustration. You're like, huh? Got him.
I finally got
I got him. I don't know if it's as much frustration as much as it is. I want my mom to be fully healed in the areas that need to be healed,
him. Hmm.
so that the full story can be told. Because stuff is carried generation to generation.
Absolutely.
That means that there is something that my mom experienced when she was a child with both of her parents that she is
Hmm.
still carrying.
Yes.
That more than likely she ended up experiencing because they have trauma with their parents.
Hmm.
And so my thing is not necessarily frustrated, but uh it's not time yet. But when it's time, that's gonna be a powerful story. And I keep telling her she needs to write the book, but
Right.
you know that requires being vulnerable and being honest and visiting areas of life that may not be ready to be unpacked yet. But in the meantime and in between time, I'm going for mine.
Okay.
Because when I close my eyes on this side of existence, I want to be empty, meaning I
Mm.
have done everything that I've wanted to do, that I am free and I am honest about who I am, that when people interact with me, they feel like they are interacting with someone who is very genuine in their person and who you can ask anything to. I don't want to pass down these things to my nieces and nephews because I ain't having no children.
You have made that clear. So with that though, right? There's still a part of healing that
Yeah.
you need to go through because those questions haven't been answered, right? So how do you reconcile with that if for you know chance she never answers those questions? How do
Hmm.
you empty yourself then? How do you move forward with not getting those questions answered? Because those questions are very important, and the reason why I
Hmm.
say they're not even knowing, but generational curses are a thing. I mean, it's
Yeah.
real.
Very
It
real.
is real, and so you know to not that's a burden that your mother's carrying, right? And
Hmm.
you know that. And so for that burden not to be lifted, and then also a part of you to still be in wandering around in the unknown with those questions, how do you release that?
Well, fortunately for me, the people that I have questions around, that I asked my mom about, those people are still living.
Okay.
And so where I have been able to obtain healing and move forward is to be in conversation in relationship with those people. I even asked my brother who's next to me, the one who they call my twin when we were younger, is, bro,
Hmm.
why didn't you come looking for me? Like,
Hmm.
I I need you. Like my brother, like was huge into basketball,
Hmm.
and I wanted to play basketball, right? But we never got that chance. I was like, why didn't you like come looking for me? He was like, I didn't know where to look. And sometimes not having that answer is the answer. Is
Mm.
saying, I choose to accept what you can give to me, and we can build on what we have now.
Hmm.
And so that's what I've decided to do. I am moving forward with my dad. We have a wonderful relationship. I have a wonderful relationship with my brothers,
Hmm.
and we move forward, and that's how I've been able to heal those areas. And then when my mom comes to a place to where she can reconcile, right, those issues and answer those questions, and let me be very honest about this.
Hmm.
Sometimes it will take folks a minute to come to the table because there has to be an admission of wrongdoing.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
if you have one of the hardest things, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be between like me and my mom, right? This can be between, whomever, between people. The
Hmm.
hardest thing about saying I'm sorry is saying I messed up.
I'm wrong. Yeah. Yep.
And in this case, that mess up poured over into someone's life and caused certain things to come about, right?
Hmm.
That's a hard thing for a parent to sit with. That's a
Right.
hard thing for a best. Look, me and JB had locked up one time, man. I was crying like a baby because he was like a brother to me, and he
Hmm.
still is like a brother to me. But I had to apologize immediately. I was like, okay, I was wrong for cussing you out. I was in the
Hmm.
church, but I was cussing. Um, and so just conceding I was
Hmm.
wrong is a tough thing to do. But my God, is it freeing once you do it,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah,
Because you're not carrying that with you anymore.
you're not carrying it with you anymore. And it's up to the other person to then say, I receive it or I reject it. And it's up to the person who has received the okay, I was wrong. It is up to the person they're saying that to say either look, I'm gonna dwell on this or I'm gonna move forward. And now if
Hmm.
they choose to dwell on it, that's on them. But you do
Hmm.
your part by saying, I messed up, I was wrong. If there's a space for us to move forward, let's explore that. And if they choose not to, they choose not to. It's no longer on you at that particular point in time. I hope this is helping somebody.
And it should, and I'm sure it will. Did you ever forgive your stepfather?
No,
Mm.
no.
Are
This
you okay?
this say that again. Go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No, go. No, you go ahead. Say what you're going to say.
This is gonna sound real jacked up. Now this is transparent me,
Hmm.
and it's not necessarily something I'm proud of. Let me be clear. I'm not saying this to brag.
Hmm.
I remember sitting in front row at his funeral, crying, and my sister later told me she said, "Oh, I saw that you was crying at the funeral." I wasn't crying tears of sadness. I was crying tears of joy
Mm.
because the tyranny was over.
Mm.
I really still to this day I don't think my mom and my sister understood how much of a weight he was in my life and what that did to me, right? So one of the things
Hmm.
that he said to me like before he passed, he looked me dead in the face and he said, I'm so proud of you. You made it, you did it. And I realized that he wasn't saying that, oh, you've grown into something, you made it. He was saying, I'm proud of you because you survived my abuse.
Mm.
And so when we say forgive, I want to say I am at peace.
Okay.
But I am very well aware of how his existence informed my being. And I am very well aware of the fact that, in my faith tradition, God has forgiven him. And that's the forgiveness that he needs. Right. But in
Mhm.
terms for myself, if you ask the question, like, have I forgiven him? No. Have I released him? Yes. And those are two different things,
Okay. Okay.
if that makes sense.
It does, and that's what I wanted to ask because as a brother, I didn't want you to continue to carry that for the rest of your life.
Oh no, we're definitely not like carrying it, right? Not carrying it all,
Right.
but being able to say, "I release you." It's
Hmm.
the same thing as saying if someone has wronged you,
Hmm.
you got to say, "All right, I release you."
Yeah.
There is no space for forgiveness because of the depth of the wound, right?
Hmm.
Some
Hmm.
things sometimes you can cut somebody so deep to where it is irreparable, right? They
Right.
are permanently scarred.
That's right.
And so the repairing, the act of remembering or putting back together is made impossible. And the only way to reconcile the issue is to release. And that's what I've
Hmm.
done. Release. You don't repair a car that's beyond repair.
Hmm.
You release it.
Right.
and
Right.
that's what's been done here.
So there's a couple of conversations in reality that have to go down for you and your mom, not just dealing with the absence of your father and how that took place and for the length of time it was, but
Mm-hmm.
also the conversation of the protection of Antwann, not only with the church, but also from the stepfather.
We've had that conversation.
Were you satisfied with that conversation, the results of that conversation?
I accept what she can give me at this juncture in life.
Hmm.
And this is for other people out there who may be walking through the same thing, either with a partner, a sibling, or a parent.
Hmm.
You have to give to yourself that which sometimes someone cannot give to you. This is what I mean by being able to
Hmm.
see your parents as individuals and
Hmm.
bringing, like, that really did a lot of work for me, right? And being able
Hmm.
to say my mom is a whole ass person.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Like, she is a person with her idiosyncrasies, her own proclivities, like
Hmm.
things that she likes, things that like, she is a person. She was a whole person before I got here, right?
Right.
And
Right.
being able to see her in her personhood is completely healing for me, in that I'm able to say, I accept you for the person that you are. And while
Hmm.
you work and wait and process through your healing, I am going to accept what you can give me, and I'm going to move on because I cannot stay here. The ball must move forward. I am not a victim. I choose not to be a victim. I just want to be informed so that I make better decisions, so that my decisions aren't trauma based. Because if you're not careful, we will make a lot of decisions out of trauma, everyday
That's
life
right.
decisions. And so I just
Hmm.
want to be informed. And so when her answers to those questions are, listen, I had to make sure a roof was over y'all head. Yes, it was hurtful, it was painful. Who was the person that bore the weight of abuse so that the household could stay together? Yes, it was you, but ultimately I had to have a roof over you all's head, and I had to worry about what he was doing to me, etc. Got it. Don't need to go no further. Got it. And
Yeah.
now that that piece right there, once I know, now it is up to me to say, yes, I was abused emotionally, physically, all of those things.
Hmm.
And it is now up to me to heal myself. What am I supposed to do? Sit here and cry about it?
No. No.
That can't happen. And so I can't sit around saying, "Oh, my mom did." This is like the first time, well, not the first time. This is the first time in a long time, whether I should say, that I've had a very like open and honest conversation about who I am. Well, I guess which is the purpose of the interview, right?
Hmm.
And some of the things that I've been through. Most people would not hear me say, "My mom did this to me. My dad did this. My stepdad did that," because I'm not interested in that. Nobody wants to know what happened to you. I mean, maybe it's
Hmm.
separate in the case of this interview. People are interested in, listen, brother, sister, sibling, where are you going?
Yes.
Because the present is now.
Hmm.
And so I'm responsible for my own healing. That ain't my mama's responsibility. Once
Hmm.
she gave me what she could give me, all right, cool. Come on, we come from a people who were given the inside of a pig and made chitlins. Come
That's
on now.
right.
So
That's
you so
right.
you take the little bit that you have and you procure your healing. You procure the sustenance to move on to the next place in your life. You don't have time to sit around and be somebody's victim. Grow
No.
up into it,
Hmm. That's
if that
right.
makes any sense.
It makes a lot of sense. And I
Yeah.
think, too, Antoine, we as Black people, if you have the faith that you and I have and what we were brought up in and raised in and beliefs that we keep to this day, is that in the Bible, we it is taught not to idolize anyone but God, but we have idolized our mother in
Mm-hmm.
particular, to that point of where we put her in that state of Jesus like,
Yes.
position. And
Yes.
so that's hard for us to reconcile when we find out that they are human beings like us.
Mm-hmm. It definitely is, and I want to be like very clear. Anybody who knows me knows that I am pro Black woman all day
Yes.
long, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
even like what you have stated just now, we also need to consider how putting Black women in that kind of position, the godlike position, is
Mhm.
also a level of emotional abuse
Mhm.
because
Yes.
they live within
Yes.
this framing of I have to move and operate like this, and if I show that I am human, then I become less than. And
Yes.
my thing is to free my mom from that particular thing. Listen, now that I understand you as a person, go ahead and be your real self and unpack that, because Black girls are raised to be this type of cloak of femininity. First of all, that's impossible because of race, right? Because
Mhm.
womanhood
Right.
is dictated through whiteness, but that's another story for another day. You invite me on for that. But nonetheless, to take them out of that light and to free them,
That's right.
right? And here's the thing that I find for a lot of brothers that have issues with women, and
Mhm.
Black women specifically.
Mhm.
More than likely, if you sit down and have a conversation with them, it is because they place some woman figure in their lives in that particular limelight and felt a way when that light got obstructed
Yes.
because they could not maintain it. And so now all
They were
Black
let
women are
down.
bitches. All
Yes.
Black women are this.
Yes.
And that's not the truth. You put them in that limelight and you have to do the work to take them out of that limelight. And that's why I say it is not on my mom to heal me.
That's right.
It's on me to heal me
That's right.
and
That's
still provide the space for Black women to be able to heal themselves and do the work that, because I'm not a Black woman, so I don't know what all that entails, but
mhm.
pulling them out of that limelight to where they can create a space for themselves to heal themselves and to be honest. Because part of, and again, I'm not a Black woman, so, I'm pretty sure someone will correct me that is a Black woman, if I'm wrong when I say this.
Mhm.
Part of Black women being able to heal is to be able
Uh-oh, I lost you.
to, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay, okay. Part of Black women being able to heal, and again, I'm sure if there's a Black woman out there that, if I'm wrong, will correct me. But part of Black women being able to heal is us releasing our expectations of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Take
And it
that
starts
off.
with mother. It starts with
Yes,
mama. And that's where when we find out that mama is human because we kept them there, then that's when the black women ain't shit comes up.
mm-hmm.
Because you've
Mm-hmm.
been let down because what is mama doing going out partying having a good time? She's supposed to be doing that. She's supposed to be here taking care of me, cooking, cleaning, doing all these things for me. And she got a man she going out with?
100%. And your mom is not your servant.
Yes.
And this is why I say, like, I'm not going to push on my mom, like, to do, because she has to do that work, right? I take what she gives me, and I do
Mhm.
the healing on my own. You have to release the women in your life from those, so that you, brothers, can move on. And
Mhm.
I'm a living testimony of that, because I could be around here saying, "Oh, Black women ain't da da da, Black women
Right.
da da da."
Right.
Nobody's interested in that. So we as brothers have to come together, right, and be
Mhm.
able to say, um, "I choose to heal myself. I choose to allow Black women to be perfectly human."
Mhm.
For them to have the space to heal themselves and understand that Black women are not in service to me. Because even if my mom decided not to answer the questions, my mama don't owe me no answers.
Right.
She don't owe me no answers, because she may not be ready to unpack that. And
Right.
so I have to seek what is needed. And once I have the answers, and once I'm having these conversations, then it becomes a me and God thing.
Mhm.
And we have what's called the faith walk.
Mhm.
And day by day and step by step, you become healed, you become reconciled, so that you can move on to Morehouse, so that you can move on to UCLA, so that you can inspire students who've had a similar story to you, so that you can talk honestly and transparent like we are doing now.
Absolutely.
That becomes
Absolutely.
necessary.
Yes. Yes. Brother, you've done it again.
Bro, we didn't even make it to California. Oh my goodness, I am so
No,
sorry.
look, forget
Real,
California. We still got to go back to Atlanta. We went to Atlanta briefly.
yes.
We so
Oh my gosh. Okay, so next episode, whenever you'll have me back, but hopefully, the conversations that we are having are helping folks to heal. Hopefully, that's what
Yes.
I would hope.
That's what it's all about, healing and
Hmm.
focusing on the now. You know, um, too much we see people focusing on the past and bringing that to the present and finding that their lives are all discombobulated because you're trying to mix the past and the present together. And no way can you mix that. Does that formula equal moving to the future? That's not going to
Hmm.
happen.
Or you try to outrun your past, and you can't outrun your past. You're
You
gonna have to
can't.
confront it dead on. You're gonna
Mhm.
have to speak to it, speak for what it is, and listen. Be honest about your stuff. That's why I do. Like
Mhm.
one of the things that I told you at the top of this interview. I'm an open book. Be
Yeah.
honest about your stuff. Students will always ask me, "Can I ask you a question?" You sure can. You got to be ready for the answer.
Mhm.
Because I'm going to give you the answer. Be honest about your stuff, and being honest about yourself
Mhm.
allows other people to be free. Can't nobody say nothing about me because if they said it, I put it out there.
That's right.
That's how it kills the rumor mill right there. Well, Antwann, I heard, baby, what you heard. I can tell you for myself. I will show you the bill. I will show you the degree. I will show you the email.
That's right. That's right.
So be honest about your stuff. Be transparent. And when you are honest about what has happened to you and what you have been through, then you become empowered. And I'll shut up because I know we pressing toward an hour. So
Oh no, you're doing fine, brother. I thank you so much. I thank you for what you have given, not only myself but the audience that is listening. Um, that is something that can't be paid back in gold because that's how much more it's worth. And so, I want to encourage you all to take this and move forward with your life. Everything that Antoine has talked to you about. We're going to come back with a part 3 because we need to talk about the Atlanta years. This is going to be a 4-parter. And shout out to Dwayne because Dwayne said, yeah, this ain't going to be just 2 parts. He was right. Um, this will probably be a 4-parter because we're going to need to touch, well, probably a 5-parter because we need to touch on the Atlanta years. And then we need to touch on the UCLA years. And then after UCLA, meaning coming to the present. And so we'll come back. We're not going to come back next week with it. So don't be looking forward next week or the week after, but we will be back soon so we can follow up on this story and on this brother that has been blessed. That's the only thing I can say because
mhm.
not a lot of people make it out of the pit. And there was a time when Antoine was in the pit, if you've
My
listened to his
Lord.
story. Not a lot of people have made it out the pit. If we want to take it biblically, not many people are Daniel.
Come on.
Okay. So, my brother, thank you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you. I love you.
Love you
We're
as
going to
well.
have you back. Thank you guys so much for listening to Conversations with Ron and Keith. I hope that this will be a blessing for you, and we'll be back with you next week. Holla at your boy.